So today, I'm very pleased to introduce my colleague, Yuta, for this module 5 of the training on cluster management. And Yuta is our head of international affairs at Oslo Cancer Cluster. You are a life science professional. You have a PhD from the University of Heidelberg and the German Cancer Research Center. And at OCC, you are responsible for international collaboration and business development of our members. And through your career, you've developed a very strong international network, both in Europe, but also in the US and worldwide. So it's very exciting to hear your thoughts about first the building blocks of a successful internationalization strategy for clusters, but also to hear some of the examples from your own experience. So I will leave you the word and very excited to have you again.
Thank you so much, Marine, for the kind introduction. And it's my pleasure to meet you all. It's my first time joining one of these meetings. I think it's an amazing initiative, and I hope that some of the learnings and experiences we can share with you will be of value for what you are building up. And as you know, I'm Marine's colleague, and you can always reach out to us if we can be of any further support or help with any introductions from our network. So let me then share my screen. I just have to, yeah. So you have met Marine before, I assume, and you also know a little bit about the Oslo Cancer Cluster. You're an oncology-focused cluster. I understand that you work in different areas in the healthcare space. So I still hope that many of the examples we provide are a bit of like a general inspiration also beyond what we do specifically in oncology. We have in total around 100 members. We have this excellence in cluster labeling. We also have an incubator where we support sorry, emerging companies. And our cluster is particularly strong in immuno-oncology, radiopharmaceuticals, precision oncology, diagnostics, and AI applications. So we have different types of members who develop novel biopharmaceuticals, but also an increasing number of members who develop more diagnostics, medtech, digital solutions. So I think many of the things I'm talking today about are also relevant for various types of members and various types of innovation projects and companies. And then, as Marine already said, we as a small cluster based in the far north of Europe, we also had to focus on internationalization early on, because the industry, the health industry, is global and it's competitive, and it's increasingly competitive. So for local or regional or national clusters, even, it is important to early on build a strong international network where you get access to the right expertise, the right partners, funding opportunities, and also partners to learn from and team up with. So yeah, we call it opening doors and connecting the dots. I think this is a lot what we as clusters can do for our members. Since we bring critical mass, it's sometimes much easier to open doors and create new links than it would be for any small individual company. And connecting the dots is, I think, also a core opportunity for clusters, because we know so many companies, we have growing international networks, and we can really help to make connections between people, ideas, projects, and opportunities. So as Marina already said, we start with like why internationalization. We talk a bit about building blocks to have in place before you really start to internationalize, and then illustrate with some examples from our experience that hopefully can inspire some similar initiatives on your end, and sum up with lessons learned. And maybe due to the translation, it's easiest if we go to questions then in the end. But if there is anything, where you quickly would like to jump in, please do so. So raise your hand, and happy also to answer questions in between. And let me know if my talking speed is okay. So why internationalization? I mean, we as Oslo Cancer Cluster, we are a member organization, and I think this is true for many clusters. So it should read not only about visibility, but I mean, basically, why do we work on internationalization? We want to create a value for our members. We really want to help them to be competitive internationally, to think international early on, to find the right partners globally, and also to early on connect to relevant international experts so that they can learn and also shape sometimes their product development accordingly. So I think it's really, for us, it's mostly about creating value for our members. And then you have to, of course, think about different member groups and their needs and take these as a starting point for building your initiatives. So why does internationalization matters for clusters specifically? As mentioned, I mean, it's a key thing we should do for our members because they need the access to global partners. In our case, it's global pharma executives, it's international investors, it's key opinion leaders, it's also clinical partners for clinical trials, development, and implementation, and really help them to access these partners, as often it's really difficult for them to reach out alone. And then for the cluster, as soon as you're part of international initiatives and if you're visible on international stage, that also increases your credibility and visibility and thereby also your national impact. And that in turn helps to be attractive for new potential members, for talents, but also for projects that may come to your ecosystem because you showcase that you have certain skills and strengths that you can bring into collaborations. And then, of course, for the general cluster mission, I mean, cross-border collaboration accelerates innovation. We cannot innovate alone and in isolation. And clusters can really contribute to all our innovators to think and act globally early on from the very beginning, and thereby also increase the competitiveness of academic innovation projects, of emerging companies, of growth companies, because everybody needs these larger international networks. And in our case, we also have internationalization included into our strategy, where we also have one building block called ambassador, where we are outgoing to represent the Norwegian ecosystem, Norwegian companies, and what we have to offer to relevant international partners. So building blocks before you go global. Of course, as mentioned, I mean, you go global or international to represent your ecosystem and to create novel opportunities, inward investments, partnerships for your ecosystem. So, of course, that requires that you know your ecosystem and the different needs and partnering opportunities that your members and your whole ecosystem offers deeply. So it's really important to do this mapping, understand where you have a particular strength. That can be a certain technology area, that can be certain digital skills, that can be national advantages where your country is particularly strong at. And there can be different aspects really that will be unique selling points or a special offering that you can make to a global health innovation community. And it's really to ask, what can you offer that others cannot? Of course, many of us, we can offer a bit overlapping things, but still each cluster, each country or region has any distinct advantages that one can also exploit going international. Then have a clear value proposition. So if you reach out to, for example, global medtech or pharma companies or to other partners for EU projects, it's of course very important that you, based on the knowledge of your ecosystem, that you really clearly define what you like to offer and what you can bring to the table. and really be able to clearly communicate that so that international partners also feel, hey, there can be something of interest for us to collaborate and to create ideally some win-win collaborations. In our case, for example, if we approach global pharma companies, they are interested in innovations emerging from academic milieus or innovations in certain modalities like radiopharmaceuticals for the time being a very interesting topic. So it's really important that you state this clearly what you can add, and this opens doors to conversations. Yeah, patience and consistency. I mean, really strong and sustainable networks and relationships take really a long time to build. You develop trust, you develop more close relationships, you move from initial to more trusted conversations and more co-creation opportunities. So, I mean, you have to start small, you have to start out with something. And then if you show consistency, if you show up at the same meeting places every year, if you then become part of larger networks and communities, that really helps to develop and sustain a strong network. So it's consistency, it's some patience, but it's also making your connections feel that you value them and keep in touch over time. And then, of course, I mean, collaborations are never a one-way street, and contacts and networks neither. So really, when you start building networks and growing your network, very much our policy is see first what you can do for somebody else, and then, you know, also understand what they can give back to you. So I think sometimes it's a bit more this US way of partnering, like first, you know, hey, how can I help you? So be open, try to sometimes first give a bit, and that will usually pay off when you then reach out to partners that they are very willing to help you, support you, maybe take an hour with one of your members to coach them. So I think this is something really important to have in mind. So be generous first, but also trust that others can be generous and supportive very often, and often more than you think. So then we zoom into some examples from our clusters journey, and let us start with one of our long-lasting initiatives, the International Cancer Cluster Showcase. We realized when we started the cluster that being at big international conferences in the US or in Europe requires that you create some attention for your cluster and for your members. But being not a huge cluster and not having a Boston scale innovation pipeline, you have to create attention at these conferences. And what we did early on was sometimes to invite to a breakfast meeting, just teaming up with one other cluster. And that was already nice, but it was still very competitive because a lot is going on at international conferences. So then we thought it's a great idea to find more partners. And this is just the announcement from our event last year, where you see we worked with a significant number of international partners from Europe and the US, and also received sponsoring from international companies because they value this platform. But to come to such an event and such a setup, that also took a long time to build up, and also, as always, like some people to just start. And here you see me with two of our long-term partners from Boston. So in fact, we just met at a networking event in 2011. And then we thought, hey, let's do something together at Bio. Let's just get started. And that was the birth moment of the International Cancer Cluster Showcase. So then we found additional partners. Some we contributed, some they contributed from their European and US network. And we had our first event in Boston in 2012 and have now delivered many editions in several cities across the US, always traveling with Bio International Convention, and also convincing Bio International Convention organizers to give us a meeting space for this meeting for free, so we can also make it quite cost effective. And why is teaming up with others a good idea? It's really about critical mass, because also in your areas, you will have a few interesting companies or innovations. But then if you want to attract attention for these at big conferences, it's difficult because you compete for attention from pharma, from medtech, from investors. But then if you team up with like a group of partners, and then jointly you have a pretty exciting pipeline and innovation offer. And if you then choose your best companies and others choose their best companies, and then in total you have, for example, 20 companies to pitch and showcase the latest innovations to interested partners globally, then you really have a good leverage because you have a critical mass, you have sufficient innovation, and you also save expenses by co-branding. Of course, because you share the costs and everybody brings in some sponsors, some funding to make this doable.
Jutta,
and the great thing, yeah.
if I may ask you maybe to say a few words about bio and how
Oh,
it could
yes.
be maybe relevant for our Ukrainian partners to
Yes, of
join.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Bio International is one example of a large global meeting place for the biotech, biopharma industry in the US. It's an annual meeting. It's moving to different cities year after year. Um, and it's a well-established meeting attracting really thousands of biotech companies from around the world. So I think it's probably the largest biopharma partnering conference. But I think the International Cancer Cluster Showcase, for us, it was a great idea to connect that to Bio International Convention because there are many relevant partners and global pharma companies and investors attending anyway. And then having them in one place and invite them to our meeting is effective. But if you, for example, work more in the medtech or in another industry sub-segment, then there will be other conferences where you could see maybe opportunities to do a satellite event. And I think satellite events are quite smart because you really use the existing audience and also some of your members will be there. Also, you may bring some of your members for your first time and show them this global opportunity, this global audience. And we will also come to partnering meetings that we used a lot. So I think this is very complementary. So yeah, I mean, here International Cancer Cluster Showcase, really key message is find partners in crime to gain critical mass. Think about interesting formats that you can do at existing meetings and do that consistently to get seen and to build your network. So example 2, cancer crosslinks. I mean, for many of our emerging companies, and I think for all emerging companies, it's very important that you think early on to connect to international key opinion leaders so that you can use them for feedback, you can use them to help shape your innovation, but you can also use them as a reference. So maybe they join a scientific advisory board, maybe they say something nice about your technology. And we established one meeting place for that started mostly as a national meeting place where we were presenting national innovation in oncology from different parts of Norway, from oncology, from hematology. And then we started, hey, this is such a good meeting place. Let's invite an international key opinion leader. And then next year we invited 2 international key opinion leaders. And now we really have a very well established meeting place where we bring together top international opinion leaders from Europe and from the US. And sometimes we also have joined them digitally. And this is a very nice way to both give some visibility for our milieu, but also create direct connections for our members. We have a short video, and if you like, I can share that. Let's see if that works.
we don't have access to the sound, but I will share the video after so people
Okay.
can look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's basically the video of this year
Yeah.
event showing the audience, but also the international speakers that came to Norway for a couple of days. And we usually combine like a day program, a scientific program, with a networking here at the City Hall of Oslo with the mayor, which is quite attractive for the media as well to have this possibility to network with the speakers afterwards.
Yes, so thank you, Marine, for adding some sound to the video. So, I mean, this is also just one example how you can create more topic-specific meetings depending on the area you are in. We are in oncology. We bring, international oncology experts to Norway that can be relevant for different members. And this is also one opportunity to work with your local pharma companies. So this meeting actually was an idea that was generated by BMS, Bristol Myers Squibb, together with us, because they felt that such a meeting place was missing in Norway. And then they came to us and they said like, hey, can you help us to develop such a meeting place? And they have been supporting us financially with this meeting place as a sponsor ever since 2009. And then every year we invite another pharma company to team up with us, also to give us some inspiration for the program. So this is also one way that pharma is really actively involved and appreciates that we are a neutral partner here. So we have the credibility, we can invite other hospitals. So it's not like a pharma meeting or too much of an industry meeting, but it's a very scientific meeting. But pharma, of course, is supporting that. They also are super happy, the Norwegian Bristol Myers Squibb organization, that we bring top international people to Norway. So that also shines some light on them. So it's also a smart way for a small or like an emerging cluster, to get some visibility within a big global pharma organization. As mentioned, we have done that for 18 years. It's co-founded by Bristol Myers Squibb and the Second Pharma. It's annual, so also here again, consistency, build it over time, start small, maybe have one international hotshot, can also be digitally. Maybe in your case, if you want to create something, invite somebody who inspires and then build it from there. I think most of the things here we covered. And I mean, also these key opinion leaders that we bring, they are a good reference for future contacts. And whenever we reached out and asked, like, can you talk to our member, give some feedback, very often they are really happy to do that because they have a nice memory of this meeting. It was professional, it was interesting for them. So it's also relationship building over time. So third example, and we talked a bit about that, Natalia, based on your question. We early on started to go really actively to international partnering meetings. What is important for us in our case is BIO, as mentioned before, BIO International in the US, but then in Europe, BIO Europe Spring. And really use these meetings, taking a very active role as Small Norway to say, hey, here we are, we have something to offer, let's talk. We even started with an own small partnering meeting together with a French partner cluster in the early years of the Oslo Cancer Cluster. For a couple of years, we co-organized a nice smaller partnering meeting. But then we also realized that was a bit much for us as a cluster to do every year. It's expensive, it's a lot of work, and we are a small team. And a Nordic partnering conference emerged, organized by Swedish partners. We said like, hey, we support you, we join, we help you to build up this meeting, and we are your oncology partner. So we really help to make this meeting place relevant and co-shaped the program for many years. So that was one way we started to do something ourselves, and then we became a good partner for an existing partnering conference and really helped them also with reach out, with offering good sessions to the program, mobilizing our members. So this is one way that one can use also emerging meetings. And I think there are also like a lot of partnering meetings, also some more regional, also like in Estonia, for example, they have sometimes some meetings. So I think it's one can also start with more regional meetings and then use these to contribute to the programs, bring members, support members being there, and of course use these meetings to reach out to global pharma. Here again, if you then are, for example, a partner for like a particular session, then you can also use that in a smart way to say, oh, you know, for this, I would really like to have a speaker from Roche. And then you reach out to Roche and say, hey, you know, we are hosting this session focusing on this and this topic. It would be great if you can have a speaker. And this way, we also developed really nice relationships with industry experts who came, were part of a session. We talked to them before, during, and then some of them afterwards even came to Oslo to explore the innovation milieu. Usually, we, as mentioned, we attend the Nordic Life Science Days as a good Nordic meeting place. We use by Europe Spring as larger European meeting places. And then sometimes we also test new formats. There's a new format now in Berlin called BioCap. We will be there the first time this summer because we decided to do a bit more in Europe now and less in the US this year. And then what is also something interesting and to consider, there are also these more scientific meetings. So in our case for oncology, ESMO, and also SITC for immunotherapy, there will be other more contents or like area-specific meetings for other indications, for other technologies. So these meetings can also be good to attend, to build a network or to do satellite events and really use such meetings where anyway, many industry people and many researchers come together to do something special with partners, again, as a satellite, or try to be involved in a session, or try to be like a marketing partner, or try to see if any of your members can be in the program. So really different ways to use such international meetings to slowly build more and more visibility and build your network. So yeah, just to summarize how one can use these meetings, I mean, really active and professional use of partnering systems for the cluster, for members, and for the ecosystem. Not all clusters are doing that. So I think when we go to these meetings, we always make sure we have our profile in the partnering system. We actively reach out. We sometimes draw members with us if we meet somebody who is relevant for them. So we really are active here. We use it for satellite events, receptions, roundtables, workshops. So we really think, can we do something in addition if our resources allow? And then we get discounts for our members because we have been an active partner, and we also help our members to prepare for such meetings so that they really know how to use meetings, and we help them with direct introductions or more visibility, sometimes also via a booth. And we used to share booths with others also to bring down the costs. So I think it's also a good way to have a footprint, but without having too many costs. And then serendipity, if one is at that meetings, if you go to evening receptions, if you sit next to somebody during lunch break, just start talking to them. And sometimes you run into those people who can help you open doors. So I just had a great example, and this is a good segue to the next topic. I met a lady more than 25 years ago at a meeting in San Francisco, completely random. And since then, we were just connected on LinkedIn. She called me a few weeks ago. Now, completely like coincidence, we met here last week, and now she invited us via a connection to the coordinator into a really relevant EU consortium. So this is serendipity. Never underestimate networks and contacts you run into at these international meetings. And I think they can open many doors and create great opportunities. So talking about EU projects, so then here Marine is much more the expert than I am, and handing over to her to cover ACOS as one example.
Yeah, and I mean, you are involved and you've built EU projects yourself, so yes. Please feel free to jump in. So we had a whole session earlier in the series about EU projects, but with an angle that was from the funding point of view. But here we want to highlight as well how EU projects can be really useful to build or expand your network. And I'm going to use ECOS as an example. And ECOS is, if you can go to the next slide, Yuta.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I
Just
have
looking at
control over
yeah.
the slides.
No, I do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. ECOS is a Horizon Europe project. And if you remember the different types of projects we discussed earlier in the series, it's a coordination and support action, which is usually the type of projects as clusters that we can be involved in. It will be really helpful to support your ecosystem and help to develop it. Another type of project that can be really useful for clusters are under the European Innovation Ecosystem, EIE. And there you will also find projects that are really directed towards building the ecosystem and connecting with other like-minded structure in Europe. And in the case of this ECOS project, we are part of a consortium that is made of more than 60 partner organizations in 30 different countries all over Europe. So you can see how from one day to another, it really expands your network when you join such a consortium. And our role as a cluster in the project is to lead stakeholder engagement. So we also really strategically choose that task in the project because we knew we were going to interact with all the stakeholders in the project, wherever they come from, whatever they are working on. And what you have to know is often in a project, if you have a significant role, if you are in charge of a task or a work package, for instance, you become a member of the executive board. It's often how projects are designed, which gives you also a lot of opportunities to shape the project and to shape what you are developing at the European level. We, for instance, hosted, like we do in the Clusters for Health project, a knowledge exchange, which is the equivalent of our deep dive in the Clusters4Health project, where we had 9 partners from Europe coming for a visit in Norway, and where we connected with relevant people here in our ecosystem at the Innovation Park, but also more largely in Oslo. And then it ended up that our own structure that we developed in Norway has been used as an example in other countries and is now part of the examples that are mentioned in the project. So that's a really kind of win-win situation. We didn't go in this project for the money. The money, when you have 60 organizations and 6 million euros, is very, yeah, it's not that interesting, to put it bluntly. But it's the opportunity to develop the network is huge, especially for a small cluster like us. So I would really recommend to weigh that in also when you decide if you want to be part of a project or not. That's an important factor. And the next slide is a logo salad, as we call it, to show you all the partners that have been involved in the project. What is really interesting for us as a cluster is that it's really wide. We go from a hospital to a policymaker to patient organization. So we broaden our kind of network, but also we broaden the type of partners we could have access to. And that was really, really valuable. And then, of course, when you enter such a consortium, it opens door for future projects. So now we are following up on this project with another 5 years, where we expanded even the consortium. And you have, I think, a next slide with some key messages summarized. So yeah, it's so we started this project 3 years ago, and as I mentioned, it really deepen our cross-border collaboration. You shouldn't also kind of going back to the building blocks that you presented, Jutta. You should make sure that you are ready to enter such a consortium, because your credibility depends on it. If you aim for a task that you are not able to fulfill, that can be quite damaging for your reputation as well. So you shouldn't really, or if you want to enter a consortium where you should really wait with what you are able to provide to the consortium, and take a task that is in line with your skill set. That's important. But once you are in and able to deliver, you also gain a lot of credibility among the partners of the consortium. So as an example, in this project, we went from being a leader of a task to now being the leader of quite a substantial work package in the continuation of the project. So I would advise to start small. You can deliver on a small task, and then the next step is to maybe chew a bit bigger. And of course, you benefit also from the network of your network. So it means you have an entry point in one country. For instance, like let's say you collaborate with Portugal, where you had initially no partner. Now you have an entry point, and if this organization is central in the country, gives you access to a larger network at the national level. And as you mentioned in this last point, Utah is really a fast way to build a European network, to be part of this coordinated support and action are usually big projects, but also European innovation ecosystem ones. So yeah, feel free to add on to that, Utah, as well.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, we can also answer any questions you may have regarding EU projects. And I think Marine summarized nicely what's in it for a cluster. And I think this is also when we advise our members in joining EU consortia or using EU funding. Beyond the money, it's also a strategic opportunity to grow a network, gain visibility, work also in some consortia directly with industry partners, learn from them, builds the trust. So I think it's a great platform, and hopefully also offers opportunities for you and your members. So I think just to sum up this part here, sorry, my screen is a bit, I have everything on one small screen. We have shown you some examples from how we work. So International Cancer Cluster Showcase is one way to make our members or give our members visibility to global pharma at an international conference. And at the same time, we use that to strategically open doors and have long-standing and trusted relationships. Cancer Crosslinks is an opportunity or like a way to bring international key opinion leaders and other relevant partners also, if one thinks a bit broader, to your own ecosystem, either in person or digitally, to also develop relationships for your members. EU partnering in general at partnering conferences is a great way to open doors to become an active partner for different EU or also international partnering conferences, and attending such conferences over time also builds a strong network for you and via that also for your members. EU projects we just talked about, and ECOS is a particular example where we also contribute to shaping European policies. So I think this is also something, even creating an additional value beyond being part of this project per se. And then this direct business development work, building on all these networks and partnerships and contacts that we develop via different internationalization activities. Of course, we can then help our members when they come to us and say, oh, I would really like to talk to Novartis, or do you have any investor who goes into seed stage and is currently looking for this and this technology? We can then, of course, use our network that we build for our members to make these personal introductions. And I think that is extremely helpful, these warm introductions to investors, to pharma partners, and that helps emerging companies really to have relevant dialogues and get the visibility and get the feedback. And we also stimulate our members to use such opportunities early on, not just when they need funding or when they urgently have to partner, but really also help our members to build long-lasting early relationships. Yeah, so lessons learned. I think time is soon off. So as mentioned, start with a purpose, not just with presence. If you choose and attend events, it's not just to be there, but also have a clear goal. So either it's develop this and this type of relationships, look for a partner to do this and this, actively engage and provide a satellite event or a session contribution. So really think about how you like to use meeting places strategically. Yeah, find your natural allies first. Cluster to cluster partnerships are powerful, and you already have cluster partners via Clusters4Health. So hopefully this can also be like a great starting point for you as a cluster, as cluster partners. And often cluster collaborations can really help to support internationalization via teaming up for satellites, via using network of networks, via sharing a booth, via co-hosting a session, different ways here. Consistency over scale. I mean, we have built the network we have today over many, many, many years. So we started in 2008 and really have both events running since then, but also meeting places we attend year after year. Use EU projects strategically. We talked about that. And then bring the world home. I mean, part of internationalization is also that you think about what you can host digitally or in person in Ukraine and also in the coming years, hopefully, where you really think, hey, whom do we want to bring closer to our network? Can we use such a person to give a keynote at a digital or at an in-person meeting? So really think about who's of interest, and very often you are surprised that people are also saying yes, happy to join and give a talk and connect to your network. And then be generous. I think it's very often first like think what you can do for others, and then others will also realize how you think and be willing to give back. And also when you do things together, it's also make sure that others gain visibility and use the opportunity in a good way. And this is also, of course, how you build trust over time, and also how you have these lasting and trusted relationships that you can then use when your members have needs, when you want to involve people into something, when you reach out regarding EU projects. And also, I mean, these partners that you develop over time, they will also have you in mind when they create an initiative, when they want to build a consortium, or when they simply want to team up with somebody to do something larger. So I think that was what we thought to share today.